Alright. Helmet's off. We're getting into this. Hi y'all, Snarky J Cosplay here. So recently, Temuera Morrison actually came out and talked about the Book of Boba Fett. And of course, a lot of us have spoken about the Book of Boba Fett, right? Including myself. I reviewed it and I've been very outspoken about the fact that it literally keeps me up at night how incredibly disappointing and awful I thought that show was. But Temuera Morrison had been sort of quiet about it. Of course, he's the star of the show. He portrayed Jango Fett in the prequels, came back to voice Boba Fett in some of the video games, redubbed the original trilogy with that classic Kiwi accent we now know and love Boba Fett to have. And of course, it was Temuera's face we saw tracking down his lost armor in season 2 of The Mandalorian, where Boba Fett made his big comeback. But obviously, the Book of Boba Fett, even though it was hyped up for years by fanboys of the titular character who were begging Disney to bring back the EU and bring Boba Fett back out of the Sarlacc pit as he once escaped in the extended universe, I of course am definitely not one of those fanboys that live to regret it. But anyways, the Book of Boba Fett was panned by critics and fans with taste and any respect for Boba Fett and his legacy. And it really was a huge bummer because Temuera has always come across as somebody who really cares about the character. And this is 100% confirmed by this statement that I really want to talk about in this video. Temuera was recently in Melbourne, Australia for Supernova, which is a comic and gaming expo sort of thing. And he got the chance to talk to fans about his experience with the Book of Boba Fett and his thoughts on season 3 of The Mandalorian. The first part of his statement was pretty surprising. I was supposed to be in The Mandalorian season 3, but nobody rang me. I was waiting for the phone call in New Zealand, waiting and wanting to give up. That alone is a tremendous bummer that Disney didn't even give him the courtesy of a cameo or at least a call to let him know, hey, we're thinking of you, but maybe you're not gonna come up in this season. After all, he played a great role in season 2 of The Mandalorian, which was basically all but thrown away in the Book of Boba Fett. The guy was a complete badass when he reappeared in season 2 of Mando and then played the rest of the time in the Book of Boba Fett like a pacifist grandpa, which is no fault of Temuera Morrison or his acting. I think he's great. It's all in the fault of Disney and their writing and the complete lack of understanding that they have for Boba Fett and his character. Could be a lack of understanding, could be a lack of respect. Either way, the show sucked. And of course, in season 3 of The Mandalorian, they spent a lot of time, you know, like rounding up other Mandalorians. So it seems a little weird that they wouldn't at least call upon the guy in a helmet that runs a town, you know, Boba Fett, the original Mandalorian. I don't give a shit what the lore says. He's the original guy to come on the scene with that helmet, so he's the OG Mando. And of course, as bad as Boba Fett's show was, he also lost 2 episodes of it to The Mandalorian, which Temuera Morrison also talked about. Well, that Mando guy stole a few chapters of my book. It was painful watching him turn up with some black new lethal sword, and the way he turned up in my Book of Boba, he just destroyed everybody. I'm sure this guy is ruining my show, but I couldn't say anything. I'm not the writer, so I have to bear it, I guess. Anybody who knows a little bit about Temuera Morrison knows that he's got a really great sense of humor, so I definitely am not of the opinion that he's absolutely of the opinion that Mando ruined his show. However, the bitterness is clear. He knows that he was not the badass in his own series. It was the shiny guy that showed up with a kick-ass black sword that, yes, destroyed everybody, including the badassery that his own character was trying to establish, because there's a huge difference between, hey, I just cut somebody in half with a laser sword, and I got thrown around by a big Wookiee while in my underwear. The fact that he said he couldn't say anything because he wasn't the writer just goes to show you how unhappy he was with the treatment that the writers gave Boba Fett. And sure, non-fans of Fett will come and say the original trilogy didn't show him doing much and he was such an irrelevant character that we should be happy that he even got a show where he was the main guy to begin with. But at the end of the day, Fett fanatics like myself fell in love with him for how cool he looked and really got committed to him based on what a badass he was in the comics. He was painted to be the greatest, most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy, not whatever it was that he eventually became in the Book of Boba Fett. The rest of what he he said at Supernova kind of confirms what a lot of us have been talking about. I think there is a few changes going on. We also come under the big umbrella known as Disney now too. So as one of many previous few conversations we had in LA, the dialogue began like, oh look, we're having a few changes, we're having a few cutbacks. And while you hear that on the different finish of the road, it's no good attempting to barter any more cash that's for positive. So we'll see what occurs. What I take that to mean is that maybe they were planning on bringing back Boba Fett, maybe they did have something big planned, but for whatever reason they started making cutbacks. And that to me seems present in some of the sets and some of the action sequences in The Mandalorian Season 3. They're really not up to par with anything seen in the prior 2 seasons. They're not even on par with the 2 episodes that Mando took over in the Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett looked like it had a beer budget, and those 2 episodes that belonged to Din Djarin and his story, well, they looked like caviar. So what this looks and smells like to me is Disney once again shortchanging original trilogy characters in order to kill off their legacy and further boost their new characters. This of course comes from somebody who loves The Mandalorian before season 3 anyway, so it's not like I'm picking sides here between Din and Boba. I love both, but it's obvious that Disney put way more time, love, and cash into making Din's story worth watching, and basically shortchanged Boba Fett because they were unready or unwilling to give him anything worth watching. They were unwilling to take a dive into the EU, which had dozens of great Boba Fett stories and fantastic characterization for a beloved character, and instead made him a laughingstock to make their new toy ploy look all that much better. I honestly feel incredibly bad for Temuera Morrison. Honestly, I think he is a fantastic actor, and every interview I've seen him in, he seems to have such a tremendous love and respect for both Jango and Boba Fett that to me, I can't imagine how much it must suck to finally get the call back that you're gonna put on that helmet, but you're basically gonna be a super watered down, neutered version of him to satisfy basically nobody, and everybody's gonna talk your show on the internet while really not referencing what a great effort you as an actor put into it, because at the end of the day, what really counts is the writing, which just sucked. I hope at some point leadership at Disney brings Temuera and Boba Fett back in a way that doesn't absolutely suck, but if we get more Fett along the lines of what happened in the Book of Boba Fett, I say just throw him back in the Sarlacc and let the guy rest. That's all from me. I've been Snarky J. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on Temuera Morrison's comments about the Book of Boba Fett in the comments below.